Hello, world. Welcome to our AI webinar. My name is Sagar Pandya, the AI Evangelist here at Ntiva. I'm incredibly excited to be able to talk to you about this amazing technology that has taken our world by storm. In today's session, we are going to have a brief overview of 5 leading AI platforms that are in use today. We're going to talk about Microsoft Copilot, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and Perplexity. Without further ado, let's dive right in. The agenda for today includes first, why I believe AI is having its popular limelight moment. We're going to talk through the 5 platforms from a high level so you can understand some of the differences between each of them. We're going to talk briefly about AI prompting, what it is, what it means, and how to get started on using these tools so you can also be successful in your AI journey. Then we'll follow up with the conclusion just to wrap up what we've learned so that you can take those insights and start your AI journey. AI really took the world by storm back in November of 2022. I remember when ChatGPT was first announced, the immediate rush of people that signed up to use the platform was just absolutely incredible. And for those that don't know, GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. It's essentially a large language model that's been trained on the entirety of the internet, and it's able to access information very quickly. I believe it's the right time and the right place for AI to exist today. And I truly believe that this is now the next shift in technology since the iPhone back in 2007. And everything has aligned perfectly. More computing resources, better advances in machine learning, cheaper resources to allow developers and organizations to build great products. We have amazing new infrastructure from companies like Microsoft with their Azure platform, Amazon with AWS, Google with Google Cloud, and many, many more. And we honestly live in a data-centric society. We are now expected to be very competitively advantaged with the information we have at our fingertips. And speed is everything. If you think about the conveniences you have in your life today, whether it's mobile apps, it's access to information with colleagues, clients, vendors, or family members. It's your ability to use technology in your day-to-day life, from things like vehicles to medical care to food to education. We live in a society that is moving at light speed. And the ones that have access to this data and have access to make decisions based on it seem to be the ones that are the most competitively advantaged. So AI fits that bill very nicely, and it gives us all the ability to continue moving at that light speed. We talked really briefly about the 5 platforms we're going to jump into today. And here's a quick breakdown of what they are, who develops them, and just a quick advantage from my point of view for each of the 5. The first one we're going to talk about today is Microsoft Copilot. This should not be confused with Microsoft 365 Copilot, which is a completely different tool. The Copilot we're going to talk about today is your everyday assistant. It's accessible through the Microsoft Edge browser, and it gives you a chat-like interface that some of you may already be familiar with. The difference between this and the Microsoft 365 Copilot version is that the 365 version of it has a great integration with all of your data within your Microsoft 365 tenant and your Microsoft 365 account. I want to give a shout out to my colleague at Ntiva, Ted Brown, who has created some amazing learning series around the specifics of Copilot and Copilot for 365. So please check out additional resources on the Ntiva website to view his on-demand webinars to learn how to use both platforms much more intimately so that you can use it to better your activities and output within your organization. Second is going to be my favorite, ChatGPT. It's what's hailed as the original forerunner of AI tools, and OpenAI is a developer of this great technology. They really democratized the access to AI by creating this chat-like interface, and it allows anybody with a computer and an internet connection to be able to access the power of the AI that they've built. They are really the first mover. They've created something called ChatGPT plugins, which allows other third-party services such as restaurant bookings, travel sites, and other online services to interact with your AI conversation so that you can have even more powerful outputs based on the prompts. And more recently, they've also created something which is incredibly exciting called Create GPT, which allows anybody that subscribes to their platform to be able to create a custom chatbot based on knowledge, data, attachments, and information so that you can use even more powerful AI capabilities at your fingertips. Third on the list is a product called Claude from an organization named Anthropic. They are what's hailed as a more real-time type AI tool. In my experience using this platform, I had the ability to upload pretty large attachments, which we'll see in our demo, and it allowed me to then ask questions, and the responses were very fast. The challenge with using ChatGPT at times is the amount of folks that use the platform is much higher than the folks I believe that are using Claude right now. So speed does become a bit of a challenge, and you have some performance hiccups that I have noticed even today while we're recording this in March of 2024. And that's why I believe Claude seems to be a bit of a faster, more bleeding edge responsiveness platform that I've seen in my experience. Fourth on the list is Gemini, previously known as Bard from Google. And the benefit of using this platform is first, getting access to the very large data of Google search to empower your AI platforms, as well as the ability to use Gemini within Gmail, Google Docs, and other products within the Google ecosystem. It gives you some unparalleled access and data-driven insights so that you can make better decisions either on generalized information or information that exists within your Google account. And last but not least is a product called Perplexity. I refer to this as more of the research-based AI, which gives you sources and credible information, and it gives you the ability to verify that the data that you're looking at is in fact coming from a legitimate source. All of these platforms always have a bit of an asterisk next to them when you use them. While they are easily available and accessible through an internet-connected device, you have to be careful at times when you're prompting and using the tools, simply because these tools and platforms are known to hallucinate. So we want to be sure that when we're using these platforms, you want to take everything with a grain of salt. You want to verify things with an actual expert or your own research. And you want to be sure that if you're using this product for anything that's very specific to something regulated or health related, or even something that's client facing, do your due diligence and make the best judgment call before acting on the data that AI is going to present to you. So how do we access data that the AI presents? Well, it's something called prompting. Prompting is essentially your ability to ask the AI the appropriate question so that you can get a response that's valuable to you. Think of AI tools as like a human assistant. If you think about just working with a colleague or a human assistant, and let's say you were booking something around an email marketing campaign, you're most likely not going to ask this person, hey, I want you to create me some marketing copy. That's a very generic response, and it doesn't really give the other person that's listening to you much information on what they need to do, right? It's very generic. It doesn't tell you how many emails you need. It doesn't tell you who the target audience is. It doesn't even tell you what you want the emails to talk about, right? So there's definitely ways to improve that, and that's done through appropriate prompting. So instead of saying create email marketing copy, you could say something like create some email marketing copy for me that's more engaging. We'd like to promote cybersecurity auditing services. What subject lines would you suggest for an email sequence that includes 5 emails? Right? Something very specific, and it gives you more insight into what you're expecting in terms of the output. So treating prompting as if you're talking to another human being, I know it's kind of strange to be able to say that, but that's going to be the best way that you're going to get the output that you're looking for. And all of these platforms, and even some that aren't listed on this presentation today, they all do 3 things really well. They all understand context, they all contain memory, and they all produce outputs with reasoning. What that means is you don't have to ask the platforms, these AI tools, the same questions over and over again in order to build the familiarity with the topic you're talking about. You can feed it information in tiered and structured prompts so you can build up knowledge of the chat that you're having. My recommendation is, regardless of which of these AI tools you're using, try to use each chat to an individual topic. So if you're talking about good baking recipes for a weekend for your family, try to keep that chat window specific about topics related to baking, and avoid talking about things that have nothing to do with baking, such as laundry or getting an oil change in a vehicle, right? The more you can keep the prompts related to the topic at hand, the more context you're going to create for the conversation, the better the AI platform is going to be able to save that information in memory. And then finally, the AI reasoning capabilities are going to give you the appropriate output so that you can see the power of these tools. Creativity here is going to be the most important thing. And for those of you that are watching, if you've tried any of these platforms maybe once or twice and said to yourself, hey, this AI stuff is kind of cool, but it's just not for me, I highly encourage you, give it a second and third chance. Think about questions a different way. Don't be so caught up in thinking that prompting is like doing a search online for some type of information. We're all so conditioned to search for things online that we've lost our ability to be creative and ask inquisitive questions. So my recommendation when you're jumping into these platforms, treat them as if they're a colleague or a human assistant and ask questions as if you're having a regular conversation. That's going to give you the most value with what you're looking for. And it's going to be incredibly exciting for you to build that skill set, because I truly believe this AI technology is definitely here to stay. And the organizations and individuals that can harness this amazing technology are going to be much more competitively advantaged than the ones that either do not take the time to learn it or don't take the appropriate measures to build up their skill set. Now, I know I've been talking for a while here, and you're probably all super excited to jump in. So let's do some demos of these platforms. I'm going to first jump into a quick demo of Microsoft Copilot. Again, not to be mistaken with Microsoft 365 Copilot, which is a completely different platform. Today, we are just going to be doing Microsoft Copilot, the daily assistant. So you'll see, and you notice I have the Ntiva website here pulled up on my Microsoft Edge browser. You'll notice on the top right here that the Copilot icon is available. So I click into it, and you'll notice that it says protected here. That means that this chat is individually for me, and I have access to be able to create conversations without any worry about this data being added to any other Microsoft account. So there's two options here that I want you to focus on. First is the chat option. This chat option is more for short form content, right? So you want to ask some very basic questions. You want AI to just give you a quick answer. For those that have used probably ChatGPT, this is probably going to be the most familiar, is going to be this chat feature where you can go and ask questions to this Copilot AI tool, and it's going to give you responses based on what you're asking. So I could say, what is the weather like in Chicago, and what do you recommend I tell my friend to pack for the next week, right? So I'm jumping in here, and you can see that this is going through and it's thinking about the prompt that I had provided, and it's searching for the weather, and it's giving me packing recommendations based on that weather. So you can see a very generic, easy to use prompt, and it's giving you the weather, it's giving you some other things, and you can see how this is going to be related to what I asked. So again, very basic prompt, very easy, and it gives us just the ability to go in and ask very basic questions. The compose function of Microsoft Copilot is a little bit more involved. It's going to give us the option to create longer form text and content, right? So if we want to go in and maybe create, for the example listed here, a work performance review, and the tone that you want to give is casual or funny, you can search and pick those options and just say, all right, we're going to do a work performance review for Sagar. He has been with us for 5 years. He is a great employee, and is looking for a promotion. Give me an idea of a meeting agenda that praises his efforts, gives us context on ways to improve, and how he can continue his path for promotion. Right? It's a very pretty generic work performance review. I want to make it kind of casual or funny. Let's go with casual, right? And I want to create this maybe as a paragraph. I could choose email, bullet points, or report. We're going to keep this as paragraph. Why don't we do a long length here just so you can see the example of what it looks like. And you can see once I click generate draft, it's going to take all of this information that I input here, right, about the work performance review for Sagar, casual, paragraph, and long. And here are the essential meeting agenda items that I can use to have a successful conversation, right? So I can see here that there is a quick agenda here, right? That's done. And it's a work performance review for Sagar based on what I'd mentioned. I could go back and say, you know what? I'm going to send this as an email instead because I want to send it in the meeting invite, right? Into either Outlook or Google Workspace, whichever email you're using here. And you can see now it's gone and it's created an actual email copy. So you can see the opportunity here for Copilot is going to be first chat, and then you have some options to go in and create some specific Microsoft Office related type output, which you can immediately use in a handful of different formats that can help you with your day-to-day functionality in the office. So that's quickly on Microsoft Copilot. We're going to jump into the other 4 AI tools as well. So you all have the opportunity to see what all of them look like as well. So let's jump into ChatGPT. And you'll now be able to see that ChatGPT might look like a very familiar interface. Folks that I talk to seem to have the most experience with ChatGPT because it's again, the first mover advantage. It was like that first AI tool that came out that everybody heard about, mainstream, and it got everybody really excited. I think the work that OpenAI is doing is incredibly impactful. Obviously, everybody's not perfect, and they're doing their best to create AI that has safety standards and guardrails. But like I mentioned before in the presentation, you want to take these things with a grain of salt and just be careful on the types of things that you're asking and where you're publishing that data, just so you have full understanding of what's actually being said. So ChatGPT, you can see there is a chat interface here, and you can see that I could start prompting things like, what are some ideas for packing clothes for a friend who is visiting Chicago next week? So very similar prompt, right? And you can see it's generating some of the output here based on the very generic question that I asked. The difference between this prompt here in ChatGPT is this and Copilot. Copilot sent me the actual weather as well, and it sent me a link for it. And ChatGPT didn't do that on its own. I have to go back and say, tell me what the weather will be next week. Now you noticed I don't have to tell me what the weather will be next week in Chicago. ChatGPT and all these other AI tools, they understand context and memory. So I don't have to write Chicago. I just say, tell me what the weather will be next week. And it knows immediately that I'm talking to it about the city of Chicago and not any other place in the US, right? So you can see these are just some basic examples of how you can prompt. You can even go back and say, we plan to do outdoor activities and want to stay near the lake. How would you change your recommendation? So now again, with that context and memory, it's going to know exactly what we're talking about. And it's now going to create an actual list that I can then copy and paste and send it in an email, or if I want, in a text message, or even read it out loud while I'm on a phone call with this friend that's going to be visiting, right? So you can see the outputs here. You have to get really very inquisitive, and you have to get very specific about your prompts to be able to get the right option. But this is a quick way just to jump into ChatGPT. There are a couple different models here that I want to show you. ChatGPT-4 is available, both free and paid version. GPT-4, I would say, is more like a college-educated type person, right? Where they have a little bit more reasoning and the ability to make some better outputs that are longer. GPT-3, I would just as an example, I would say it's like a high school level type person where they are great for everyday tasks, but they may not have as long of a output as you would like. And then what's really been exciting for ChatGPT has been just these plugins here where you can see plugins are access to additional third-party services. So for example, if you want to use Canva to create some social media posts through a prompt that you create, you can now use that. You could go in and do other things like make a spreadsheet. You know, if you're like me and not really a big expert on Microsoft Excel, you want to do pivot tables or data manipulation and a spreadsheet, you have the ability to do that. There's another one for, link reader where you can go in and see what the link of a web page is going to be, and the list goes on and on. One of my favorites is Open Table, where you can have it go in and say, all right, we're going to use Open Table here. And I want to have dinner in New York City with four of my friends next Friday. Okay. We would like a rooftop with Italian food at 7:30 p.m. and two of us eat everything. One is vegetarian and one is vegan. What are some options for dinner? So it's going to go, and now using this prompt, instead of me having to go into Open Table, searching all the restaurants that are open and available for 7:30 p.m. that have rooftop capabilities, that have Italian food, I can just run a prompt here and it's going to go and use the Open Table API connection. It's going to list some restaurants for me. So I thought that's really cool. It saves us a lot of time. This is just one example of plugin capability where you could go in and just have the AI do the work for you. And it's really cool. You can click into each of these four here, let's say STK, and it's going to actually link you to the actual portal inside of Open Table. And it's going to let me choose the booking, and I'm off to the races, right? So that's one example. There's another example here for like flights, right? For kayak, if you want people coming in from different places, you can have it make some decisions for you. So that's the power of these plugins. That's why I think ChatGPT is very unique, because they tie into other third-party services that allow you to take advantage of their technologies as well. Now you'll notice here it says GPTs will soon replace plugins. That is true. We are now entering the world of creating GPT bots, and I'm going to save that for the next video. But the ability to create custom bots that allows you to essentially do very specific tasks and train that bot to be very knowledgeable about a specific topic. It's going to be incredibly exciting to see what ChatGPT and OpenAI can continue to build here in the rest of 2024. Let's jump into another tool now from a company called Anthropic, which I believe is backed by Amazon. They have created an AI named Claude, which I believe this is the fastest AI that I've seen, period. From uploading an attachment or essentially adding in any additional information, you have the option to then run a very long query or very long prompt. And Claude does a great job of essentially bringing back that data in a really quick manner. So I'm going to go ahead and just show you an example, right? So we're going to do that same example here. What do you, and here's the different types of models here. So you have Opus, Sonnet, and Haiku. All these platforms that you see today, they are premium paid versions. They vary between $20 and $30 a month. You do not have to pay for platforms to be able to use them. But if you want some advanced features like plugins and other insights like faster models, you will have to pay a premium. They're usually month by month, and it's up to you on whether you feel that it's going to be worth it. So what do you recommend my friend packs for clothing for a trip to Chicago next week? We plan to do outdoor activities and stay by the lake. So you noticed I consolidated some of these prompts, and it's going in and it's going to essentially think about what it's doing. And I see that this just moves, in my opinion, just a little bit faster than all the other AI tools. And you can see that this is giving me specific examples, just like ChatGPT and Copilot did as well. So we're going to let this go ahead and build out some of this output here. And see, remember to check the forecast. I can go back and say, what is the weather forecast. Now it's going to be thinking. There you go. Now, the difference between Claude and other tools like ChatGPT and Copilot are that Claude does not have, as you can see, the internet access because it does not have information beyond August of 2023. So that's why I say Claude is really good if you wanted to go in and look at specific attachments. So let's do an example here of an attachment on this file. This is just a Microsoft AI PDF file. It's about 39 pages. I'm going to go in and say, give me a bulleted summary of this PDF. What is the main topic and sentiment of the document? So it's going to go in, and it's just essentially an AI PDF from Microsoft. Now Claude is going to go in. It's going to go ahead and summarize. It's about 39 pages. It's going to go in and it's going to see what this document talks about. So think about all of you that have to go through maybe an RFP process, or you have to read something that's very dense in material, and it's, you know, more than 20, 30, 60, even 100 pages long. And you just want to know if you can ask the document some questions. And this is your ability to do that in Claude. You have the option to go in and upload attachments. You can go in and you can see a bulleted list that it created for me based on what I was presenting it. ChatGPT and Copilot also have these options. I have found in my experience Claude to be the fastest and the most meaningful in terms of attachments that I presented it with. So that's just a quick overview of Claude. Again, I think it's one of the faster AI tools that's out there simply because there's less users on the platform right now as of March 2024, and it just does a really good job of doing document review. Let's move over to Google's Gemini now. You can see that this is a very similar interface here from a chat perspective. And you can see that there are options here to choose a few different models. Gemini, the free version, and advanced is the paid version. Again, I believe it's $20 a month to be able to access some additional models here that gives you access to some more speed and some more data. So we're going to go in here and say, tell me what my friend should pack for a trip to Chicago next week. We plan to do outdoor activities and stay near the lake. Okay, so Gemini is going to go and it's going to give me some feedback based on the prompt that I had provided. And you can see the difference here, right? Google went in and it did an image search and it found me some on clouds that my friend should pack as shoes, right? So a jacket. Through links online, you can see the difference between Gemini and Claude is that Claude didn't have access to be able to go in and give me specifics about real-time weather, right? Gemini was able to do that because now it can go and search things online. So again, a very different experience. You have to make your own judgment on where you want to use these different AI tools. I use them all for different reasons. Biggest reason I would go and use something for Google Gemini is I can then refer this to my internal Google data, whether it's Gmail, Google Workspace, Google Docs, and I have the ability to implement Gemini across those platforms as well. You can see that this gives me an actual listing. I can also go back and say, tell me the weather forecast. And now Gemini is going to go back and it's going to provide me the weather forecast for Chicago. Again, don't have to give it any context. It knows the city that we're talking about. And you'll notice that the weather is listed straight on this page. Kind of strange that we're seeing winter snow in Chicago after it's been a really spring and warm weather like, but hey, that's weather and it changes constantly. So you'll see the difference here in Gemini. It gives you more of a web-based search. You could go in and use this for things inside of your Google Workspace or Google data, and it's going to be very relevant to that. It's just something that these other AI platforms will not be able to even come close to. Then finally, I believe this has the most potential here is the Perplexity platform. It's essentially a knowledge engine, right? So it gives you the ability to ask questions. So I'm going to go and say, tell me what my friend should pack for a trip to Chicago next week. Let's change this prompt up a little bit, not include the lake and the outdoor activities. So you can see that Perplexity is thinking about this, and it's going to also give me a similar output based on the prompt that I'd provided. And this is also the pro version of the platform as well. I believe it's $20 a month, month to month, but it's totally not required for you to be able to use the platform. So having a little bit of a latency here on Perplexity, as with any live demo, and we're just going to give it a second to think. And if it doesn't, we're going to go back and give it another shot. So let's go back, try this again. Can you try again? Let's see. See if it gives us a response this time. Looks like maybe Perplexity has some. What is the weather in Chicago next week? Very basic prompt. Let's see if we get the opportunity to have Perplexity work for us. May not be functional. There you go. It just took a second. It was my browser. Okay. What's the weather in Chicago? So it's going to say, what's the temperature? And it's going to go and search the web. There you go. Very quick. So that was a browser issue, everyone. Sorry about that. So it's giving me the weather options here from Perplexity. You can see it's very different. It's actually basing it on like a bulleted list. It's going through day by day. And I can, while this is still loading, what should my friend pack for a trip here next week for outdoor activities and staying by the lake? So it's understanding the question, and you can see it's going to ask maybe a follow-up, right? The difference between Perplexity, it didn't just give me the answer like the other tools. It went and it thought for a second. It said, okay, well, you're going to be, and it makes sense. If you talk to someone that's familiar with the Chicago area and you tell them we want to do some outdoor activities, they'll say, okay, I mean, do you want to go boating? Do you want to fish, hike? Do you want to go running? Do you want to go sightseeing? What are the things you want to do? And I'm going to go and say, since there's not a lot of hiking opportunities in Chicago, why don't we say we're going to go boating? Right? It's kind of cold, but maybe we need some clothing that's going to be helpful for us to go from a boating perspective, right? So you can see some of the options here that it's giving me from a boating perspective. And I like the fact that Perplexity follows up with a question before it just gives you some answers. You can see some of the sources here, some image photos of people that what they've done from a boating perspective. You can see that it's giving you the actual sources. So some of these answers are based on maybe something from Yelp from here. And you can see all the other sources listed here, which I thought is incredibly impactful, especially if you're doing something that's research-based. You have to validate the information you're talking about. I find Perplexity to be a great tool to do anything that's research-based, right? So that's the overview of these AI tools today. I know that this has been an incredibly exciting time for everybody. I hope some of this overview of information for these 5 platforms in this session gave you enough to at least give the tools a second or third chance so that you have the opportunity to see the magic of this technology. Stay tuned for additional AI webinars on the Ntiva website on demand for continued content regarding the power of this amazing new technology. And thanks again for joining us for our session today. And I hope to see you on the next one. As always, stay safe out there.